someone gets hurt.
There's bugs in my skin. You're responsible for me. I'm getting offended. I'm a big fat gamer.
TGG, the voices are normal, and you should listen to them.
TGG, I'm getting offended.
TGG, this was the phrase we thought of.
Legal counsel advised us to replace what was supposed to go here.
TGG, it isn't funny until someone gets hurt.
There's bugs in my skin. You're responsible for me. I'm getting offended.
Hello, everybody. It's me, your favorite son, here as always, Friday, 7 p.m., to bring you another show, to bring you some good stuff. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Evan Prince.
That's me.
That is him. And this week, we have
Confirmed.
a guest. Jwlar is back, sort of. Because
Glad to be back.
he's involved in the archival episodes that they scrubbed from the internet that they tried to get us taken down for.
Trying to get us cancelled over.
Yeah, they can't keep us down.
Hold us back. Trying to hold us
You
back.
gotta
for
find
real.
those on the dark web now.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
The
can
Onion
you can
browser.
find them. You just got to try. This week we got some news. We got some stuff going on. Bungie layoffs, probably the biggest thing, as you can see in the title. We'll get into that later. Some wild stuff going on there. We got Game Informer shutting down for permanent, for good.
R.I.P. Dude.
Maybe we'll do.
Fucking
Maybe we'll
RIP.
be doing some reminiscing on the good old days. And I mean, and maybe a Darksiders announcement. Something. I don't know. We'll get into it. We'll get into it as we go. Don't forget to like the stream and support the show. We appreciate
It's a demand,
it.
not a
it's
request.
Not a request. That's why I said don't forget, not could you please. So get on that as ASAP, as soon as you can. But as always, start the show, top of the show. How have you guys been? What have you guys been doing? What have you been playing? What have you been watching? Consuming? How's your consumption been?
Jwlar, why don't you start us off? What you been up to
Sure
this
thing.
week?
This week, not a whole lot, to be honest. A lot of like real life stuff, basically. Consuming wise, a whole lot of Olympics, pretty much. My wife's super big into badminton, so we've been watching a lot of that. She's
wow.
Malaysian, so they actually have a good badminton team. The UK, not so much. I think we pretty much got kicked out in the first or second day of the Olympics, but that's been my consumption. Not a lot of. I've been a bit AFK off the online world for a while. I've been doing a lot of DIY around the house. I've got a new floor in this room I'm actually in now, as well as just like the real life job and stuff, but still working on some videos in the background. But I say video, it's the one video that I've been,
One video.
that I've been talking about for a while. Yeah, I first.
What's the length at this point?
It's 8 hours long. Now
Ooh.
that's confirmed. It's all
For
been
one game.
voice recorded for one game. Yeah, it's all
It's
been
not like a
voice recorded.
series.
No, well, yeah, it will be a series.
No, I
for
mean it's not like a
Patreons,
series of
but-
games. It's just a
no,
single
it's a
game.
singular game. It's from a series. It's Diablo. I've mentioned it's been Diablo. I think in the last podcast actually I was with you
did.
guys is when we talked about it then.
Yeah.
And it's still in the works, but yeah, it's getting to the end now, thankfully.
Quality
As
takes
I'm
time.
finding a little bit more time to work on it.
Hell yeah. Is the U.S. doing good in the badminton?
I haven't
How we
seen
doing over
them,
there?
so I'm gonna go ahead and say no, unfortunately.
Damn.
It's mostly a lot of Asian countries, India, Thailand, China, Malaysia, Singapore, and Denmark. Denmark are like the only kind of representation from like the West, really. They have one player, Axelson, who is the world number one, world number two. He was world number one last year.
That's like the coolest name I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, they have some
Axelsson.
good names up in the Norwegian, not in the Nordic countries. Sorry.
I haven't
Yeah.
watched any of the Olympics. I don't really watch the Olympics. I can't get into it. Skating. I've
I'm
seen some
not-
skating Olympic stuff.
I'm not big on sport normally. It's just the Olympics are huge in the UK, and I think it's maybe because I was like at a pivotal age when like it was in the UK when it was London 2012, and since then it was kind of been like a tradition. Like every 4 years, you actually start caring about sport for like the 2-3 weeks it's on, and then don't care again straight after.
Yeah. All right, Evan. What you been consuming?
I certainly haven't been watching the Olympics.
Consume
I'm
corner.
just
That's what I'm gonna start calling it.
yeah, I'm really not big into sports or Olympics or anything like that. There was a brief period in my life where I had to keep up with it for my job because I worked at a sports related marketing firm. So I actually had to constantly be doing research on the Olympics and on all this other all the sports ball, but it's not really my
Sports
thing.
ball.
So I haven't been watching the Olympics. But other than that, I haven't been really doing a lot of consuming as of late. Nothing super exciting. I probably am going to be going to see a movie in theaters next week. I haven't decided what. I haven't been to a movie theater in months. But yeah, nothing all of that exciting. Just well, the Bounty Hunter remaster. That's about it. I played
yeah.
the new Bounty Hunter remaster from Aspire that released yesterday. And my video is out on that, but that's been basically it.
I didn't watch your video. Was it good?
Surprisingly, actually, yeah, the Bounty Hunter remaster was handled very well as far as Aspire. They have a pretty bad relationship with Star Wars releases after the KOTOR 2 and the Battlefront Classic Collection fiascos. So, I mean, they didn't have to do much. I mean, it's the same exact game. It has some good optimum settings for PC. You can turn the motion blur off, which is good. VSync off. It plays well. It's exactly they didn't really add anything. There's no additions. There's no alterations except for like one or two things and one skin, which is unlockable if you beat the game. So I think it's a very humble little remaster that manages to port a game that was console locked for over a decade to PC, and I think that's all it needed to be. I think the mod community can take it from there.
So it's closer to just like a port then, rather than like a full remaster. They've not even touched.
Yeah, it's not really a remaster. There's some things that have clearly been touched up, but not really. It's definitely more of a port than a remaster, but it does come with a couple of things that weren't in the original that do make it a much more enjoyable experience. Most notably is there's a new control pattern that plays way better than the old control pattern. The bounty hunter visor slows down time so you can actually fucking use it as opposed to the original game. And there's a Boba Fett skin if you beat the game that you can play in.
Ooh.
That's about that's about it, which also meant I had to beat the entire game in like one sitting so I could show off the skin in my video.
Ouch.
It was pretty rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
And that's
Does
not
it
an
still
easy
have
game.
the big difficulty spike? I feel like
out of
2
nowhere.
hours in. Yeah,
It's on Tatooine. There's 6 chapters, and it just starts happening out of nowhere on chapter 5. It's pretty rough.
Damn. Well, I'm not very familiar with the game. Happy for you. Happy for Star Wars
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
fans.
It's a running joke on this channel that he doesn't like Star Wars and I do.
I'm happy for everybody that's happy.
I like that. I like that phrase.
No, that was cool though. That was cool that that you
Positive
got
message.
a review code. I actually like. I think we talked about this last week. I like when games do those sorts of things, little rewards for beating the game, little skins. I think that's something we've kind of lost along the way.
I talked about that. In the video, I said I really appreciate Aspire's restraint by not making it like a chargeable DLC.
Yeah.
Like a $2.99 or like a $1.99 extra or something. Just putting it in the game, you beat it, you unlock Boba Fett. Like, I really appreciate that restraint from Aspire.
Yeah,
that was the most annoying thing with Alone in the Dark, the newest one, was that they gave me in the code. I thought what I had wasn't. I didn't know it was a special edition that had DLC in it. So I thought it was really cool that they had skins from the original games. And then it's only when I was coming to write the actual video that I found out there was additional DLC, and they were like $3.99.
Yeah.
For like 2 skins.
That
and
sucks.
they like the skins are pure novelty. You wouldn't play the game with them on. You turn them on for like 10 seconds, be like, oh, that's cool, and then turn it off. They're charging money for that. It's ridiculous.
Pablo in chat says Long Legs. That was I was gonna recommend you should see that, Long Legs. I've heard that's really good.
That's the new Nick Cage horror movie, right?
Yeah. Oz Perkins directed it. He's kind of a weird oddity in directing, because he makes kind of like weird horror films, but he's been in the industry for a while. He was doing like a lot of acting, and he was actually in a movie called Quigley, I think, with or something like that with
the cult classic Quigley.
It's kind of it's like a B movie kind of thing. Gary Busey. It's Gary Busey, and he dies and gets resurrected as a dog. It's like one of those classic movies, but it's just really shitty. It's like a really bad version of it. As you can imagine, it's Gary Busey.
Is this pre or post Gary Busey?
Pre or
Like,
post? Mid-change.
Post his accident.
Oh no, it's
Mid-change.
post. It's post.
Oh, it's post.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
post. It's like it was like 08 or something, I think. Something
Right,
like
yeah.
that. But Oz Perkins is actually in that. He plays an angel in that. He's in all sorts of like weird little roles like that. But now he's this kind of like big horror director. But I've heard it's good. I've been meaning to get out to see that as well. I want to get out to see maybe Deadpool and Wolverine. I've been having less of a pool to go see that this last week, so I don't know if I'm actually going to do that. But as for me, I'm still chugging through. This is now week 3 of me reading the fucking Sid Meier book. We're going to start having a Sid Meier book section on the
Meyer's
show.
Watch.
Yeah, to see if I actually finish it. Because I was finally reading. I was allowed to read something for pleasure, and then I had to start reading this guy here for the next video. So now I'm chugging through that.
How have you found the book?
It's actually really good. It is. I personally like Metal Gear Solid 4 a lot, and I like its story. This is just a kind of a streamlined version of the story that also removes the B&B unit. So it's not anywhere. There's literally no mention of it in the book. It's just gone.
That's an odd decision.
And of course, you don't have the like gameplay explanation codec calls stuff. It's just sort of an extrapolation of the main script. It was also the guy that wrote it, Project Ito, I think he wrote manga or books. He was a Japanese writer of some sort, and he was a good friend to Kojima. He fought cancer for a really long time, and Kojima would like go and show him stuff from the newest games and everything, and he worked really close. This is the only novelization that Kojima actually said was like, he put his stamp of approval on it.
Yeah, because the first game's novelization is not that good. I used to own it.
Yeah, the first two, there was ones made for 1 and 2, and they're both like really, they're just kind of schlocky like cash-ins. I think the second one is like just straight up the game's script, like that's it. But yeah, this one was actually kind of a passion project, and is really good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
I actually, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
you.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I actually really, really like when video game universes have novel tie-ins, but I really don't like it when the novel tie-ins are just the same plot of the game. I really like it when it like is something different that expands. So, for instance, the Dead Space novels do a super good job of like expanding and like adding a new lore and stuff to dig into. But there's only one Killzone book, and it's just the plot of the third game, and that really sucks.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
why did you do that? So I'm doing videos on Perfect Dark right now, and I'm finishing. I'm at the very end of the first audio book for Perfect Dark. There's 2, and that audio book is exceptional. But it adds to the story. It doesn't just tell the story of the game. So it adds a lot of interesting characterization and lore. It's actually a really, really good book. It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So it's just, it's disappointing. I think it would have been really cool to have a Metal Gear Solid book that wasn't, that was something different, that you could like add context to other things.
Yeah, I think it gets
Like a book on Jack the Ripper would be cool.
It gets
I respect
hairy.
like companies that or like universes that allow that expansion. I know like the Elder Scrolls tried that, and they had 2 books that didn't succeed very well. And unfortunately, it's because they weren't written too well. I think it's very important that you find an author who like understands the universe and wants to expand it. But also like the company behind it, in this case, like I guess it would have been ZeniMax, they were very constrictive on like what the author could actually write about. Like they didn't want to, he couldn't write any lore that would contradict with the games. So you can't really add that much, he has to be very, very careful about what he's actually working within.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a universe that's so constrained like that, I can understand like even if the author isn't that skilled, even with a skilled one, they could still struggle like the work with what they've been given.
Yeah. Metal Gear isn't exactly a universe that like lends to that expansion very well. Origami says, where did you snag your copy? I actually got this one from Amazon. It was still really expensive. This was $60. The other ones I've seen out there are sold for like close to 200. So it's probably going to be rough finding a copy, but it is on, I think it's just on the Kindle store. You can buy it for like $5. If you just want to read the book, just read it on there. And yeah, Warcraft, Tyrannium Warcraft did have great tie-in novels in the beginning. They had a ton of really good, Rise of the Horde, I remember being really good, and the War of the Ancients books were also really good, that expanded on the universe and provided a lot of lore while also being pretty well written, like fantasy schlock novels. But I've been reading this. I've been reading the Sid Meier thing. I've also been playing a lot of PS3 games lately. I've had my PS3 set up throughout this whole like Metal Gear series thing, and I've just been like buying PS3 games that I've never tried before and playing them, and I've been obsessed with Midnight Club Los Angeles. This is such a fantastic racing game. I feel like games like these don't really come out anymore. Oh, Sammy.
Games are underrated.
Arcade races are like basically dead in the water and have been for
Yes.
a while.
Sammy A with the super chat, $10. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Been going through a really hard time lately, to say the least. Just wanted to let you guys know how much I look forward to these every Friday. Been helping me more than y'all will know. Thank you. We appreciate
Sammy
it.
A.
That's it. You're on
Thank
my
you
shit
while
for
we're here.
Effective
tuning in.
immediately.
We appreciate it. Thank you for the 10 bones, pal. Yeah, Midnight, like, you're right. Like, arcade racers are dead. And the best thing that this game does that I've noticed is it makes you appreciate the cars that you get, which is something that's so gone. Because, like, the biggest racing game right now is, like, it's either Gran Turismo or it's Forza. And when you play Forza, you start the game up and you're, like, immediately given, like, 70 cars. And 3 of them are, like, these supercars that go 240 miles an hour. And you're just, like, there's no reason to progress.
There's no progression.
Yeah, exactly. There's no
Because
progression
they're
at all.
racing simulators. They're not like video games.
Yeah.
Like those games are played. First off, I think you have to pay like an absurd monthly fee to play Forza, and this is played by people who like are like insane about playing it. You know?
No, there's no.
Wait, no, I
monthly
might be
fee.
thinking of a different one. I might be thinking of a
Yeah.
different game. What's that? It's the most popular racing game in the world. What's it called?
Is it one of those hardcore sim races? I know those are pretty
Yeah,
popular
it's
at
the most
moment.
popular racing game in the world.
I think is it the one with like it says like an Italian word? I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Oh,
I think so.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. That's a little more.
That's like
niche.
hard. That's like where they got the full like the 3 screens wrapped around them and
Yeah.
the full steering wheel.
Yeah,
setup.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
the one. That's
Yeah, that's actual
Yeah.
sim. Like Forza is probably literally the only like arcade-ish racer.
Yeah, it's the
that's out.
successor of the arcade kind of genre. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But like games like this, like you start out with like an option of 3 cars. One of them was a Dodge, or not a Dodge, but it was a Dart, it was a GTI Golf. And I picked that one. It's like the shittiest car. It controls terribly. It takes forever to like get a better car. You have to like work your way up in the ranks and win races, and eventually you get like a muscle car, and then you get like a decent sports car, and it just goes so slow, and it feels nice. It feels like, and I think Gran Turismo does this pretty well as well. They respect the history of cars, and they do all that stuff, but it is obviously it's not as arcadey as something like this. But to have the arcadey style mixed with this genuine, like, I'm getting a new car, this is awesome, this goes faster, it's a little better handling, it's nice, and then by the time you get to the end, you've worked up to like the best car, and it feels really cool. So that's been nice. And Resistance Fall of Man, I've also been playing that.
Ooh, yeah. That's one of the series that actually has good tie-in novels that like add to the story.
I've never read
They
the
might be better than
I haven't
the
read them
games,
either,
'cause
but
I
I've
remember the
heard of them.
Resistance series being very disappointing.
The first one was
Overall.
pretty good. I think I don't remember playing the second one very much, but I know the third one was pretty shit. But the first
Yeah,
one
I think
was
the third one maybe soured me
Yeah.
on my memory of it, to be honest. I really loved the first one. It was like one of the first games I got for the PlayStation 3.
Yes.
It was my first 7th generation kind of game. And yeah, I think it went downhill from there.
Yeah, it was not a series that time has been kind to be honest. But I mean, the first game was pretty cool. I remember seeing it a lot on like Cheat, like on G4. That show
Classic.
on G4.
That's
Yeah.
a classic one, dude.
I remember
Only
s-
real OGs remember Cheat.
I remember seeing it a lot on there and being super like, oh my god, I want to play that game so bad, and then finally getting it. But yeah, I've just been like enjoying the PS3 lately. It's kind of fun to just like buy some random $10 games. In that vein, I did kind of want to talk about something that had happened this week. Maybe before we get to the Bungie layoffs thing. In that vein, in my opinion, the PS3 has been it hasn't taken the secondary market like price surge as hard as the PS2 or the PS1 and stuff like that. Probably because it's, closer to the current generation than those systems are.
Yeah, it's not quite retro just yet.
Yeah, but recently I can see it shifting before my very eyes. There's some random obscure games that are starting to be like $50, $60 instead of like 20. And
Excuse me for just a second.
you're good.
That's probably tied to the 360 market closure. Like I know, like 360 games, because I've got a 360 hooked up downstairs that I still use, and you can pick up games. It used to be like £2-3 a game, but since like the announcement that they were going to close the 360 marketplace, suddenly they were like the next week they were £5, and now you're seeing some that aren't even that rare games like at £10, £15. Like they've ramped it up now. Because I think just generally the news have made a lot of people actually more interested in the 360, and it's kind of that market demand has gone up as well.
Yeah,
So I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of leached over to the PS3.
Yeah, the PS3 is also starting to feel it too, just because there's this general like culture shift, I want to call it, towards like wanting the PS3 to be ported. Like the general knowledge that the PS3 doesn't have like backwards compatible games that have been like there are a lot of games locked on that system, and a lot more people are becoming sort of hip to that idea. But
I think it's all tied to this like Burnout on AAA games as well. People, it's the common sentence that like, oh, AAA games were like better back then.
Yeah.
I think that's the general consensus, and a lot of people who maybe a lot of like the younger generation as well who maybe missed the 360 era, the PS3 era. Like they were young children doing that. They're now wanting to go back to check it out.
Yeah, for sure. And the biggest one lately has been the Deadpool game, because of the most recent movie release. The Deadpool game
I saw that.
has surged up to like $150 on eBay.
Oh my god,
it's crazy.
It's not even that good of a game. I played it back in the day. Like it's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of this weird cult classic. I do remember playing it like briefly, but not.
It plays like a movie tie-in for a movie that never came out.
Yeah.
That's how the gameplay was. It was a letdown. I felt like it came off the back of the X-Men Origins game, which was like a surprise good game for a movie tie-in.
But wasn't that done by Raven Software, and that's why it was so good? That's that's not the same.
No, but I felt like at least in my head at the time when I was a teenager, it felt like it was riding off the back of that. Like, oh, we're in like a new era of Marvel games, because this is before like Marvel kind of went through its movie era. And, I thought
what happened That's what happened after the Arkham games came out.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like during that whole era.
Origami's asking Son if he's ever played Syndicate. Have you played Syndicate?
Which one's that? Syndicate. I don't know if I'm familiar.
I think you cut out there for a bit, Evan. It's like the turn-based kind of. It's like a strategy game, kind of.
I don't think so. I don't think I've ever heard of this. No, I've never seen this cover in my life.
Two were like old turn-based games, and then the third one is it's an FPS by Starbreeze Studios. I'm actually doing videos on them later this year, so it's funny that he was asking about it. They're pretty obscure, but the third one is fantastic.
No, I'll have to check those out.
The shooter, I think this one.
Yeah, Starbreeze. It's by the guys who did the Darkness games.
We're in different circles, because I've always heard the shooter was terrible, but because it's not like the classic games.
Yeah, well, they're totally different styles of genres. Yeah. The originals are like strategy games, but I love Starbreeze Studios. I love the Darkness. I love the Chronicles of Riddick. Syndicate's great. The biggest problem Syndicate has is the post-processing effects are so obnoxious it borderline makes the game unplayable.
Ooh.
The bloom, you wouldn't believe it. You actually wouldn't believe it if I tried to describe to you how bad the bloom is on that game. You'd have to just see it for yourself.
Oh, Starbreeze are the ones that fucking killed Payday.
I think that happened after Syndicate, though.
Yeah, for sure it did. But yeah, they that's why I knew them, because I was looking into them recently. They did like Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, and stuff.
This was like the Kane Lynch era, like Kane Lynch 2, like the amount of effects in that game. It's just nuts.
Well, Syndicate's almost unplayable, unfortunately. You can't buy it on PC anymore. You can't buy it. There's no way to purchase it on PC.
Damn.
The only way you could conceivably play it is if you owned a copy, or if you're like emulating on the PS3 or the 360. I'm going to try to do a video on it later this year, on all three of them actually, but it's very difficult to get your hands on it. I really want to figure out a way to play on the PC copy, because there's a mod that removes the bloom. And I like bloom. It's just too much.
Damn. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like is there is there a reason that we think the secondhand market is so bad? Is it just general like market trends taking hold, games getting older, getting more rare, stuff like that?
Generally, yeah, retro collecting I think has become a lot more mainstream. It's not like in the mainstream, but it's become a lot more popular than it used to be. I think it used to be extremely niche, but nowadays it's a lot of people, essentially going back to buy what they grew up with, because most people, I'm sure, sold their games between generations, and now they want to go back and rebuy them.
Yeah.
And the resellers are gonna bracket if there's it's a supply and demand, isn't it? If the demand goes up, they're gonna start racking up the prices on the supply.
That's
Okay,
true.
so there's actually a trilogy of videos by Carl Jobs. Have you guys heard of him? He
Yes.
does speed running videos.
Yeah.
Okay, so in those 3 videos, he exposes how there's actually the huge markups on old games is basically fraud. Like the company that values them is owned by someone who it's this weird interwoven thing where it's actually fraud to artificially inflate the price of old video games so that they can be sold for profit. It's really
That's definitely
complicated.
the case in if if people get their game cases rated, all those rating companies, same with if you're getting your cards rated, that's all kind of like essentially that they're all they pretend to compete with each other. They're not. They're all like working amongst each other.
Yeah, they like
it's to move the market up. It's a monopoly.
Yeah,
they're worth watching.
There's a similar thing with VHS tapes, because that's another big one. More recent years, those rating companies for VHS
Especially
tapes.
because they're going to be dead in 5 years. They're all on the way out now anyway.
Yeah.
They'll stop functioning.
They're fully like degrading. I have a few old VHS tapes I had to digitize because they were actually like family videos, and we realized like they were just going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it can only last so long. It's what fucking plastic and
it's physical media for you, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't last forever.
Yeah.
That's why emulation is so critically important.
Oh yeah,
It really is.
for sure.
Exactly.
What happens when brick and mortar stores like GameStop eventually fail? Do you imagine that they will give secondhand market a new life, or maybe most will be thrown out? I mean, they're virtually dead or on life support at this point.
At least in the UK, it's those stores that are keeping the prices down. We have a place called CEX, and they're generally the ones that sell the things at the cheapest. Like you don't go to CEX to buy a 360 game for like 20 quid. It's all like £2, £3 on the shelves, like a load of mostly shovelware. So at least in the UK, like those places, I would say are almost keeping the prices down to a degree.
And I mean, GameStop here at this point is just like they just fucking sell Pokemon plushies and shit.
Yeah, I didn't even think they were still in that market anymore. I thought they fully pivoted.
Yeah,
they still sell games. I think so you won't see franchises anymore when GameStop is gone. I think that's it. But I do think we'll still have plenty of privately owned like one-off like stores that focus exclusively in retro stuff. There's 2 or 3 of them in my city that do that. They're just like one-off privately owned stores that deal exclusively in like retro games, old like card games and stuff like that. I think you'll still see that.
Yeah, and those are aimed more at the collectors as well. They're more like they've got the games like behind a case and that kind of stuff, and it's almost like a museum as well as a store.
Yeah,
and that's definitely true. And I think that they also, a lot of these old game stores will probably start expanding. Like they'll probably start offering like board game and like places to play Warhammer. Like that's really what needs to happen.
That's true.
Is if these like one-off privately owned stores want to start really working well, they need to start offering like a back room for people to come and like play Warhammer and hang out and stuff like that. That's gonna be what really does it.
There's a couple.
And then sell product.
There's a couple near me, and well, there was 2, and now there's 1. The one failed because they weren't like drastically. They weren't matching internet prices. Basically, they were selling games for seemingly reasonable prices. The other one is doing very well, and they sell like DVDs and vinyls and games and all kinds of shit, and it's like the most expensive place you could ever go. So I think that has something to do with it too, that like if you're Joe Schmo and you want to go buy a retro game, you're probably going to go to the one-off store in your town, and to keep themselves afloat, they have to beat the internet basically, or be, charge basically do what GameStop was already doing, which was charging exorbitant prices and giving you like 10 cents for your trade-in or whatever. So that just, again, hurts the consumer, because you go in to buy Super Smash Brothers on the N64 and it's like $250 or something, you know, out of the case.
And there are actually some, there's not many of them, but there are a couple of businesses, I don't think they're brick and mortar, but you'll see them online where their whole specialty is getting consoles and like repairing them from scratch. Like I used to kind of, that was one of like those types of videos that I would watch and I'd be like, oh, I don't know why I like this so much, but they would like disassemble a Nintendo 64, go in and like resolder and like correct little things and then clean it all and like put it back together and give it a deep shine, disassemble N64 games and stuff like that. So games like that, I think, because people like that are able to keep that alive, they'll last for a while. But it's the disc games, I think, that are going to be screwed, because you can't really just disassemble a disc game and keep it working.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. Discs are eventually going to go the same way, right? Because I mean,
the
it's,
more scratches they get. Yeah, I've got a PS2 downstairs, and it's at the point where some of those discs can't be read anymore. Although I think that actually might be the laser in my PS2 is going.
Yeah, those.
I have to turn it on its side. Yeah, that can be
fast.
repaired. At the moment, the quick fix is if I turn it on the side, so it's like standing up, it can still read the old CD games.
Yeah.
And I can lie it down and the read DVD games.
Yeah. Toothpaste can only do so much.
Yeah.
You know, it'll only work so far.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we wanna talk about the Bungie thing?
I think it's time.
Okay.
It's time to talk about it.
Okay. So the big thing that we're here to talk about today is Bungie laid off. Let's see, 220 employees. And this is the biggest person that's, you know, people are targeting at this point is Pete Parsons, the CEO, because he was kind of the one that announced this. This is 17% of Bungie's workforce. Did they have layoffs earlier? Did they have
I don't
layoffs
think it was earlier this year, but
last
they
year?
did have layoffs more recently than probably they should have.
Yeah. Yeah, this says every level of the company and includes most of our executive and senior leader roles specifically. Nope. Wow. We can't be sure of like who, if anybody, any big names were gone, but that's pretty crazy. So I mean, this is layoff watch, layoff corner, more companies laying people off and stuff. This is become a trend in gaming lately, at least. And this is after Bungie was bought by Sony. When did that happen? 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
I don't remember. Let me look that
I
up.
think it was, in my memory, it was 2 years ago, but I could very much be wrong.
That's what I'm thinking. It was a couple or a few years ago. Sony bought Bungie for, I think,
2022.
3.6 billion. Is that figure correct? It was a lot.
It was 3.6 billion. Yeah, and it was in 2022.
And Luke Smith is gone. Ooh, that's no good. Luke Smith walked. Okay. But I mean, what are you gonna do when Sony puts that much money into Bungie, banking on Destiny 2 making money, and then seemingly the new expansion for Destiny 2 did not do very well. The Final Shape, which came out a couple months ago, is underperforming-ish, and isn't gonna last. So I mean, this then becomes, is Bungie? Are these just layoffs? Is this it? Is this where the
is Bungie dying? Like,
Yeah.
is this
I
the
think this is
Bungie?
just layoffs. I think this is just layoffs. I think that essentially what happened is there were probably a handful of people who weren't really essential to be working there that got laid off, and then I think that a handful of people who were involved in bad decisions for Lightfall got laid off. And I think, unfortunately, because they were already laying off, because that's probably like maybe 12 to 15 people that I just talked about. Unfortunately, because they were already on the track, they said, fuck it. Let's just fire everyone we can. Just get them all out of here. And then they're probably, some of these positions are probably going to be hiring new people to replace them and bring new people in to course correct Marathon, try to course correct Destiny 2. That's way too many people to be laid off, I think. But
it might correlate with Sony. I'm reading here that apparently the layoffs are due to the leadership under delivering on financial promises to Sony. So maybe Sony cut budgets.
Yeah.
And they just can't afford to pay them anymore.
Yeah. I
well,
think it's. I mean, it has to do with that. I mean, it's also like Sony buying them and then laying off this many people, or Bungie laying off this many people later. I mean, almost 20% of your workforce is insane.
Sizable, yeah.
And I mean, maybe this just makes room for Sony leadership to replace those people and make the decisions that Sony wants to.
Yeah, I see people in chat talking about Marathon and gambling on it. And
yeah, 100%.
Classic. Yeah,
this
new Marathon has nothing to do with the original Marathon.
No.
And I know why they're gambling on it, because
weird.
it's emulating the same fucking trend of these other games. These like extraction shooters, kind of. It's probably going to be a hero shooter if I had to guess. It's
feel
emulating.
Like extraction shooters are already dying as well.
Yeah.
Like, they've almost dived in on a genre that I think has hit maturity.
Yeah,
but the thing
it's
is,
not even done.
CEOs and publishers are like 5 years behind where the market actually is.
For sure.
So they're like, "Oh shit, dude, PUBG, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We got to chase this Fortnite thing, man. That's what my son's playing right now."
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, like, I think people in chat are right. Like, they're banking on Marathon. Like, 100% at this point, because now they've announced that they're shelving the next Destiny. They are moving away from annual DLC. So it doesn't look. They're very much clearly not confident in the money that Destiny is going to bring them. And that means that, 100%, whatever Marathon is going to do is probably their last shot.
Make it
Sony said, look, we're putting way too many resources into delivering original content every year. This is stupid. Let's just make 1 or 2 maps and then just ship them a couple of skins every year for 6 years and charge them a bunch of money for season passes that have unlockable loot boxes. This is stupid. Why are we working?
Yeah.
Why are we working?
If it's got like Call of Duty type seasons, like every 2 months, new skins come out and all that kind of stuff, season pass and all that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Sony looked at this huge team that was, regardless of what you think of Destiny, I'm not super fond of Destiny 2. They were delivering a lot of original content, a lot of like new mechanics and new areas, and a lot of work was being put into these expansions. Whether or not they were good isn't here or there. A lot of work was being done. And it's pretty easy for me to imagine an executive looking at how many people were working really hard on delivering original content, and then looking at something like Warzone and being like, why are we working so much and working so hard and delivering so much content? People will still pay us money for doing half of this work.
Yeah.
Let's just turn Marathon
4 maps in like 4 years.
Yeah, they looked at Marathon like let's just have like 1 or 2, maybe 3 maps over the course of the next 6 years on Marathon, and just let them play the same fucking thing over and over again, and we'll give them a new skin.
Those are big maps, though, dude.
Not really.
Yeah, they are. So big.
It was smaller than like GTA.
But I mean,
Destiny expansion is probably the same size as one of those maps as well.
Probably
in like amount of content.
I mean, to your point though, like they were even behind on the Destiny thing, the executives, because they bought Destiny, or they bought Bungie when Destiny 2 was doing super well. And they were way late to the party, and then it fucking, it petered off like everything else is naturally going to. I mean, Destiny 2's been out for how many years now?
7 years now. Like,
and
for an MMO, like, you're not World of Warcraft. Most MMOs are pretty much drying up after 7 years.
Yeah, and they figured it out. It seems to me, like, from the outside, as somebody who's not super involved with Destiny anymore, it seems to me like from the outside they have the tools. They knew what they were doing. You make a game, you let it run its course, and then you make the sequel, you let that run its course. Like that worked out fine for them the first time. And certain MMO style games can't necessarily do that. Like, you can't make a World of Warcraft 2. It just doesn't work like that. And
they didn't want to make Destiny 2. Microsoft, Activision kind of forced their hand to make Destiny 2. You didn't know that?
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, Bungie. Actually, that was part of the reason there was like a huge falling out of multiple of like the original Halo staff and the original Bungie. Like Joseph Staten, the guy who was behind a lot of the writing for Destiny, had to part ways with the Jason Jones head because they wanted. There was an original like beginning, middle, and end conclusion of Destiny in its earlier inceptions, and they scrapped that because they said we want this game to run indefinitely. They didn't want to make a Destiny 2. They wanted Destiny to just be ongoing.
Yeah.
So when they finally got away from Activision, that's why they said, fuck this, no Destiny 3. We're going to do just Destiny 2 for a while. And I think
And now
a
they're
couple
in
of
the
years
same
ago
spot.
is when they said, okay, maybe we'll do a Destiny 3. But they didn't want there to be Destiny 2. They wanted there to just be Destiny with indefinite updates, expansions, new planets, graphical patches. That's what they wanted.
And
In
also
hindsight,
to
that's
make
probably unrealistic as well, because how are we gonna keep supporting like the PS3 era? Because that's still got Destiny on it. Like you're saying, that's gonna still be supported like now.
it
Like,
is.
You
I don't-
almost
I
need
don't
a
know
new
what their plan
sequel at
was.
some point.
It's super. It is an unrealistic idea, but like, I mean, I get that they didn't want to do it, but yeah, it's super unrealistic, especially when it's a lot of the player base is on consoles, and that you can't just keep that. I mean, you have to go with the generations at a certain point. You can't.
They probably would have just released updated like HD versions that still tied back into the originals. I would
Yeah.
imagine
GTA
cross
5.
console support.
Yeah, GTA
Yeah.
5, I guess, is a good example of that. But again, like you're not fucking GTA. You know, this isn't the best selling game of all time. Like, it's
Yeah, you're not pulling in $1 billion a year just on shark cards.
yeah. I love Destiny 2, but my God, Bungie has screwed this game over. Yeah, I think I don't have anything against Destiny. Like, I think it's fine. It's fine. It's not for me, but I don't think it's terrible or anything. But yeah, I don't know. This is definitely not a good sign for them. I think they're added to the list of companies that are on that have their publisher standing above them with like an executioner's axe right now, waiting for their next game to release. Because it seems like a lot of companies are sort of rock steady, certainly there as well. But
I think Fox in the comments really just nailed it with his comment.
imagine
says-
every producer pushing their own live services all at once, not factoring people's limited time and even more limited funds. And being surprised when yours falls. Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like everyone releasing a streaming service and being surprised, like, why can't they all afford our streaming services? It's like, 'cause
Exactly.
there's too many.
Exactly.
It's there is an idea there. The idea isn't inherently flawed because the thing is, if you can capture the market, you'll have it for a while. Like the
Yes.
idea of making a new live service game and capturing the market is a good idea. The problem is they're not factoring in. I think the real problem is that the people funding these games don't understand the kind of people who want to play them, and the people making these games actively don't want to make them for the kind of people who want to play them. So you end up with a game like Concord, who appeals that game didn't stand a chance of capturing the market from other games because no one wants to play it. It's
Yeah.
not interesting or anything. I think that new Marvel. What do you call that genre of like Overwatch simulator?
Arena shooter.
No, it's definitely not an arena shooter. Hero shooter.
Hero
So
shooter,
the
that's
new
what it is,
they just put out a new Marvel hero shooter that's already doing better than Concord because people just like the characters. They
Well,
want to play
not-
Overwatch as the Punisher. you
Neither
know?
of them are doing anything because neither of them are out yet. But I see what you mean because I
Yeah.
mean Marvel Rivals certainly looks more appealing to me than Concord
I think
does.
that's Star Wars
they
one
had a
on
they had a
mobile is
beta.
the
They had a
Yeah.
beta out,
Okay.
didn't they?
Yeah, I think they've both had. I think Concord had an open beta and Marvel Rivals
Because I
had
saw
a closed
an
one.
immense amount of footage from Marvel Rivals, and it had like a bunch of people talking about it.
It had a closed beta. Yeah, I
That
don't.
must have been what it was.
I don't think the release date.
But I mean, people.
because I've been
what I
interested
meant
in
was,
that.
is people were a lot more excited about Marvel Rivals than they were about Concord.
No, I got you. Yeah, I agree. I think, but back to the point that you said about the market and the market being split so many ways. The problem is they don't, in my opinion, they don't recognize how big the fucking market is to begin with. So they think it's infinite. And that if we just keep throwing shit in here, more people will just appear. And that only really happens when a game does capture the the mass audience, and you're bringing people in to play your game that would not have normally done so, like a GTA or something like that, where every person and their brother are playing Grand Theft Auto, but for every live service game or hero shooter or whatever, you're not bringing everybody out of gaming retirement to check your game out. You're just sapping the same market. You're tapping into the same market that everybody else is, and you're all dividing that market between yourselves, so it gets smaller and smaller every time.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know, it's fucked. But I mean, this is kind of what the thing I've been wondering for a while is, like, what is going to be the next live service? What is going to be the next live service in gaming? Because live service has been the trend for a bit now, and I wonder what the next thing will be.
Or the biggest, you would say, it depends on what sphere you're in, but I would say the biggest are still Fortnite and Call of Duty. Like, those are the ones I still see being talked about. Like, when the seasons get released, they seem to, like, the videos, trailers do okay on, like, YouTube and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like, if Fortnite's been going now for, it feels like 10 years. I don't know exactly when it is, but it feels like it's been ages now. Yeah. Like, what can dethrone something like that? How do you dethrone, Epic?
Okay, not quite 10 years. It started in 2017.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and maybe these genres just have their giants and then they just stick around. I mean, it's like World of Warcraft. I'm pretty sure World of Warcraft is still, no, maybe Final Fantasy.
Well, it's not the biggest anymore, but it's one of the biggest.
I think
still.
Final Fantasy 14
like in the
is
top
taking the number
5.
one spot. I think it's
Final
2
Fantasy is taking it.
I think it's 2 or 3, and I mean it's still, and it's one of the only ones that still has a subscription service. Like, they never dropped that. So I mean, I think you have a point there.
It seems like everyone's fighting to be like third. It's like, who's gonna be like below Call of Duty and below Fortnite?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, which is unfortunate.
Shout out to Sammy A for trying to watch this while he's at work. We appreciate you, but man, don't get fired over some
risk it all. It's worth
video
it.
games.
A sous chef.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a little.
You can rewatch these VODs. Anyway, go on.
I'm picturing what you're trying to do right now, and it's pretty. That's dedicated. I'll give you that. I appreciate it. I will say this update here does say that Jason Schreier did say Destiny 3 was not canceled because it was never in development. The project.
That's why I was surprised that people were saying that's why I was thinking the other day. I was like, I didn't even know that Destiny 3 was happening.
Well,
like
it was a Destiny spin-off game. It was codenamed Payback, and I think a lot of the people reporting on this were assuming that was Destiny 3, but apparently it was a different spin-off project that I guess was in and it was canceled before these layoffs. So that does not have anything to do with it, apparently. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jason Schreier, for most of the time being pretty reliable.
Yeah.
Right? That's a good read, right?
What are the thoughts on the $2.4 million worth of vintage vehicles the CEO bought?
Oh yeah, I forgot. We didn't
the
even
week of firing.
we didn't even get
all
to
of
that.
his employees.
Yeah, so that's the other interesting thing. The Bungie CEO bought $2.3 million of classic cars right after Sony acquired them. And I think he was still, am I wrong that he was still continuing to buy cars?
He's bought them over the past 2 years, apparently.
Yeah, June 1st was his most recent purchase. You can see this because there's like a classic car or a used car buying website, and he has a profile on there, which big oversight, I would think, to put your name on that and just show people that you're buying, I don't know, a $91,000 1961 Chevy Corvette.
No, dude, I don't think it was an oversight. Look, here's the thing: that with people like this, they genuinely don't understand why they're being held accountable for this. I'm serious. I really believe this. Like Pete Parsons, for instance, doesn't understand what people are talking about, because the people are like, dude, you just spent $2 million on cars while people in your company are getting laid off. In his mind, he's like, but that's like my money, right? He's like, I worked for that. That's my money. What is their being laid off have to do with me? What do you want me to do? Like pay their salaries forward? He has no fucking clue what they're talking about. He's like, of course I'm buying cars. It's my money. I made it. I'm buying cars. He really doesn't understand it. He has no idea.
Understand the optics of like what's going on. It's like, this is my personal life. What do you mean about all those employees I'm responsible for?
Yeah, he doesn't understand the concept of you shouldn't be doing this well as CEO if you're losing that many employees. That doesn't render to him because he's like, no, I'm doing my job good. I deserve to make money.
I get paid.
You're not doing your job good if that many people are getting fucking laid off.
I fired them all to code.
Look, here's the thing, and there's people who've been saying something along the lines of, yeah, but a lot of these people were maybe unnecessary. A lot of these people were maybe like problematic and caused, negative issues with Destiny 2. If you're the CEO, why did you let that many people get fucking hired?
Yeah.
You're
still
still responsible for them being
220
fired.
is a systemic problem that you should have stopped. If that is the case, he should have stopped that way before it got to 220 people.
Yes.
If you had that many people that you didn't need, that's your fucking fault. That's on you that they got fired. If you had people in there that were causing problems, more than like one or two, that's your fault. You should have to answer for fucking something.
Yeah.
As the CEO, that many people getting fired, you should have to answer for something, Maybe lose your fucking job.
I wanted to find too. There was an employee I saw a tweet from, who, yes, here it is. The employee. I don't mean to laugh because this is not funny that somebody lost their job, but it's crazy. Somebody tweeted, one of the employees that was fired said, "You also invited me to come see your new cars 2 days before you laid me off." Can you imagine? Oh, I don't want to do that. Can you imagine fucking...
He knew they were going to... They might have not known specifically her, but they knew.
Yeah.
He knew that those were coming.
You don't make
it wasn't
that
like
decision.
He made the decision the day of.
Yeah, you don't make that decision in less than 48 hours. And he knew.
Did he think he was doing them a favor? Like, oh, look at this cool thing I've done for you. Like throwing a pizza party before you fire everyone.
Yeah, he was like, this is your pension.
And,
this is your pension, is that you get to come see. It's a little treat. You get to come see my cars. You lose your job. It all evens out in the end, right?
If you want to get into the corporate gutter of it, a lot of the times, this is really the way it is. These CEOs don't believe the firing has anything to do with them because they're not most of the time the CEOs aren't the ones making the decision to fire people. They're not involved in who's being fired.
Yeah.
They don't even know. They have people whose specialty is firing. A lot of times they'll bring in third parties. They'll bring in private institutions to do firing. So he's like, I didn't fire them. I had nothing to do with who got fired. I had nothing to do with who got selected to get fired. My job is to show up to work and collect a paycheck and occasionally pop my head out and be like, how's everybody doing? They have other people. Because this happened to my my brother once. My brother got fired from somewhere, and he was really good friends with the owner of the company. He was like, well, he wasn't actually fired. I think he was laid off. It was bullshit, but. And he was like, what the hell? What happened, man? This guy had the nerve to say, oh, that had nothing to do with me. We have someone who handles that process for us.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You fucking own the company.
Yeah.
If you outsource the job, it's still your responsibility. You outsource.
So he was like, well, we're still friends. You can come see my cars. I didn't fire you.
Yeah.
Fuck off, dude.
We don't. This doesn't have to end our friendship. Why are you letting this job get between our relationship? I also just want to point out here that he is incredibly lame boomer car taste, and he's buying fucking Ford Bronco Roadsters from '96 for $60,000. Way to be a huge loser with your millionaire money. I'm not even mad about the firing and the buying of the cars. I don't care. If they were cool cars, I wouldn't be that mad. These are not cool cars. These are loser old man cars that people buy.
I'm mad that you just know he's not going to drive them. You know they're collector. Like, they're going to sit in the garage and he's just going to look at them and show them off to his employees.
Yeah.
He just wants to fucking own them. Also, I just want to say, I need to point out that Pete Parsons, in his Twitter bio, he has F social injustice.
Yeah.
I think that's relevant.
F it.
Mm-hmm.
Not fuck it, like the letter F, as Jwlar pointed out.
Yeah. Because you gotta be PC.
Yeah,
He means like he makes love with social injustice. He loves it.
He
He loves
doesn't.
causing social injustice.
Yeah.
Yeah. He loves inviting employees he knows are about to get laid off from their fucking jobs to come see his huge car collection.
Well,
That he spent. Dude, he spent $90,000 is probably literally double what most of the people who got laid off make in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
and
He-
like, I mean,
He could have sold one of those cars and distributed it amongst the employees to be like, here's a good severance package, just so everybody, you know, has a few grand to get them over the course of this. We hate that this has to happen. But instead he spent $90,000 on a car and said, see you later.
Dude, I
Here,
mean,
we'll throw you a fucking, pick up a bagel on your way out.
this 71 Porsche 11 he bought for 200,000.
Dude, he could have literally
It's
just
insane.
not bought that. And of course, again, this will go back to, why is it on me?
This
Because you're the CEO!
this Honda
Yeah.
Trail is kind of cool though. That's like a cool little thing. But I don't know.
I like the BMW M3 is pretty sick. I could get behind some of his choices.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not if he had bought the cars and never fired anyone, I'm behind him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only, hang on, this comment says, not only did he take pay cuts, I don't think he had any bonuses or vacations. Dude, you
Yeah, but
could
his
go on.
salary's still gonna be nuts.
Wow.
You could go on a year-long vacation for $90,000.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, this is the other thing too. Is I wanted to say like, this was an oversight on his part, like leaving this account open and people seeing it and stuff.
Shouldn't have been public.
This, like, you could this probably extends to a lot of the people that have been CEOs during any of these layoffs that have happened over the past 2 years. I bet you one of these guys has, you know, like a watch obsession, and he's got like an insane Rolex or something that he paid like 200 grand for. That's all decked out and has diamonds and shit. This probably happens a lot more than we know. This one just slipped through the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, it's just more. It's the optics of it. Like, I can see what Evan's saying, but also like if it is his money, he can do what he wants with his money. But don't brag about it. Don't put it online. Don't show it to your employees 2 days before you let them go. It's
Yeah.
more like this. It's the optics that it makes him seem like a massive dick.
Yeah, yeah,
Like with no consideration for like what people will think of what he's doing.
yeah. It is really bad. I think you could have even made the case that yeah, it is his money before the employee came out saying that he was talking about it at the office like 2 days. Like, just read the room a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, understand in your mind that you know people are going to get laid off, and maybe don't talk about. I don't know. Maybe he's just like so removed from
Seems like it.
society.
But
that he's-
that's the problem is, okay, so you would think first off, like the CEO of a company about video games would like know a lot about the game that he's making at the very least. And if you knew a lot about the game that you're making, then you would be involved enough as CEO to prevent something like Lightfall from being released, which is what a lot of people blame for causing the layoffs. They think that Lightfall wasn't received very well. You know what I mean? It's very obvious why too. You would think that a CEO, but the thing is, most of the time CEOs don't know anything about the game they're making. But what the excuse people make is, you don't want a CEO that cares about the game. You want a CEO who understands business. You want a CEO who understands how to run a company.
yeah.
But then, how did the CEO let that many employees get hired? Then, how is the CEO not taking any responsibility? Like the thing is, if you have a company and it's not doing well, the CEO should be the first fucking person that anyone looks at, right? If you put someone in charge of a project and the project doesn't do well, you should look at who's in charge of the project and be like, hey, what happened? And he's like, well, my team didn't do what I told them to do. That's on you as the team leader.
Yeah.
How about this? We're in charge of the Pete Parsons PR team. All three of us have been put in charge. We're in the war room. What are we doing? My first guess, giveaway,
Take it private.
Bungie fan giveaway. We give away 3 of the cars. Random
that's good,
giveaway, enter, you retweet the tweet,
Yeah.
and then we give away the cars.
No,
Pete, you got to get
first
rid
off,
of 3 of
that's
them.
funny.
I'm sorry, pal. Just 3. You
real
got
life-
27. It's not a big deal.
A real life PR team is going to say, listen, the internet, this is real life PR team is going to say, listen, the internet moves fast. Nobody's going to care about this next week. It's going to be on to the next company. And other companies are going to do layoffs soon. They're going to be on them. Here's what you do, Pete. You have 2 options. Number one option, which is what we recommend. Don't say anything. You already privated your Twitter. Good. That's good. Leave it like that. Don't address it. Next week, everyone will have forgotten about this. You're good. If you want to do something, we'll put out a nice like Bungie, a nice little like picture with the Bungie header in the top left that says, we're deeply sorry for the layoffs, and we understand that this is a very difficult time for everyone. Bungie has been a very important part of my life for so long. It breaks my heart to have seen so many people get laid off. This is an unfortunate circumstance. We promise to do better in the future. That's the best. He's not going to give away his fucking cars. You crazy?
It was just an idea.
He paid his money for those.
They could give away the Lightfall DLC.
There you go.
But be smart about it. Do it in a way where you have to go onto their website and put your email in, because then they don't actually have to give away too much of the content.
No, I figured
just the ones who are actually going to seek it out.
I figured it out.
Really
if you
funny.
buy every purchase of the final shape gets an enter into the giveaway for the cars. We force them to buy the DLC.
If you finish the DLC and give it a good review, then you're entered.
That's really funny, because then whoever wins the car has to pay the fucking insurance on the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tax and everything.
Yeah, tax,
Yeah, that's the worst possible thing, is to give them that
It's
one of
actually
those
screwing
cars.
them over.
It's awful.
That's terrible. Okay, I gotta run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. Origami says maybe this is reductive, but the problem with the industry is it's taken over by corporate entities. There's no avoiding that. There really is no avoiding that.
As soon as gaming became big, the suits moved in. It became business first.
The only thing that can be done about this is for people like you and like us to post about this on Twitter and hold these people accountable and harass them. Okay, I'm not accounting for anybody to be harassed, by the way. I'm not advocating for harassment.
Also,
Don't harass
support
people.
companies that are headed by gamers. If you see like a developer you like leave a company to start his own studio where he's the CEO, then support those companies. Obviously, if the product's good. If the product's terrible, don't. That's the goes without saying. But do
not harass anybody. Do not threaten anybody. Do not be mean and nasty to anybody. But definitely call this out as bad behavior. That is what you have to do. You have to say, this is bad behavior. We don't like it, and we don't want to support Bungie anymore while this is being not addressed. While this is not being addressed, we're uncomfortable supporting Bungie. That is how you do it. Don't harass anybody, but point it out. Hold them accountable for their injustice.
I guess the problem with that as well is what do you count as it being fixed? Because a lot of people might just count what you just said about the little Bungie memo saying oh, we're deeply sorry about that. And they're like, yeah, we got it, boys. Job's done. And then they'll go back to supporting Bungie as if nothing happened, and then really nothing changed.
I think that a lot of this could be cleared up if they would release a memo stating what the severance packages were. I think that would do a lot. For instance,
to tell people that we did take care of these people.
Yeah, if they, assuming they did, by the way. I feel like they had to have done something, But if they released a memo that said, listen, every employee that was laid off was done so with a 3-month stipend of this amount of money. We also, did this and this and this to support them, and we have people who were working on contacting, being available to provide references for them to get involved. We have a team at Bungie who is taking calls and transferring them. Pete is taking personal calls to provide personal references to people to try to get them other jobs, things like that. That would be the memo. That is the memo to put out. But the thing is, if they didn't do that, they can't put that. So then they need to do that now. They need to retroactively contact these employees if they haven't done it and been like, hey, we understand what's happened. We are wanting to make it right. We are offering a 3-month stipend package of this amount of money each month to make it right, to help you in between jobs, and we are trying to provide references to everybody who was laid off unfairly. These people weren't fired, they were laid off.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. If you're fired, you did something wrong. If you're laid off, they just don't want to pay you anymore. So then they need to do something. That is really if they wanted to make it right, literally make it right. That's the best thing.
If they haven't given them those stipends, I don't think they want to. They're not going to retroactively take the financial hit now.
Yeah.
It's done. We've got rid of them. We'll brave this storm for a few months. People will forget,
That's
and then we'll just keep going on.
But
that was to answer your question about if don't support Bungie
what
until it's
they
been made
can
right.
do.
That's what they could do.
Yeah,
that I think would make it right.
We just know that they're not going to, unfortunately. No.
Not a chance.
I think. Well, the other thing too is corporate America is rarely ever that transparent, and especially in the game industry. The game industry is never that transparent with things.
No, transparency is bad for business.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said before, it's best to just brush this off, move on.
It'll work.
The other thing I forgot to mention here as well was that 220 employees were laid off, but over 100 others were transitioned to Sony, and a smaller team would be spun off into a separate PlayStation studio in a deepening integration, which I think lends further credence to the whole Sony takeover kind of theory.
Yeah, that sounds like Sony's almost scouted people that they thought would be good for them.
Yeah.
They
for
definitely
sure.
did. They probably scalped a lot of the better employees from Bungie.
I mean, they paid
They
paid $3.6 billion. They're trying to get every
trying to get
little
all the
advantage.
talent they can.
Yeah.
Gut it and then leave it.
Yeah. So I mean, this certainly isn't great for Bungie. But why? I mean, we're talking all this stuff about, you know, modern day studios. We're talking all this stuff about shutdowns, and we had a soldier that was lost today. Soldier that was lost in the war. And I mean, we just need to 07. One quick 07 chat.
Yeah.
Game Informer.
I had many Game Informer issues in my youth, man. I
salute
collected
you.
dozens and dozens of them, man. I would look forward. I remember the day I got my copy of Game Informer with the Halo Reach cover when I was so excited for Halo Reach to come out. I was like reading through and getting excited. I remember I saw the photo of like the assassination animation like in action, and I was like, yo, what? You can like sneak up behind people and do like an animation to like kill them? That's wild.
Yeah.
Fond memories of discovering what clickbait was through the likes of of their articles.
Yeah. The thing was too, I remember because so GameStop has shut down Game Informer. They've owned Game Informer. They've owned Game Informer for like ever. Because I remember being a kid
long time.
and going to GameStop, and that was how we got our subscription. Was my dad signed up for the
That's how we got mine for a long time. Yeah.
GameStop Pro program or whatever the hell they had, and then you would get the Game Informer shipped to you every month. And I remember even issues that we had from before that I would just read through all the time. One I had Jade Empire on the front, I think.
Oh, that's a long way back.
Yeah, it was a super old one, and it was like there was masking tape on the binding of it because we had just like flipped through it so much that it was just like it was just falling apart. And I would just look at those all day because I mean, back then the internet gaming space it definitely wasn't. I'm not going to say it wasn't like existent. There was forums and there was YouTube-ish and stuff, but like. I was getting my news straight up from G4 and from Game Informer. G4 is also gone, fallen soldier.
Rest in peace.
Tried to rise itself back from the grave as a zombie and was immediately shot and killed, unfortunately. But
to be fair, they didn't go about that very well. But.
no, that's what I was saying. It was clawing back to life. But yeah, I was actually surprised that Game Informer was still going, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm surprised it was going as a print magazine. I thought it was purely a clickbait magazine, like website, by the time of its last year.
I believe they did sell print versions, but I think you had to like order them from the website. I think they might have been limited stuff.
I think it was tied apparently to GameStop's Power Up reward subscription service.
Was it still?
In March 2024, they they relaunched the print magazine.
Wow, interesting. That's wild. That GameStop still has a subscription service thing.
Yeah. But to answer your question, it was always GameStop's. It was originally a 6-page magazine to advertise new games for the store.
Oh, okay. So they always
and then it grew from there. So
Gotcha.
it's always been GameStop's thing.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, but Game Informer to me was like it was always the most. It was like the coolest of these magazines, because I mean there was so many fucking magazines. There was
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah,
like
yeah.
obviously like the OGs like Nintendo Power. There was like wasn't there a PC Gamer magazine?
Yeah, that
I
was
think
the big
so.
one in Europe, or
Yeah.
at least in the UK. PC Gamer was massive. We have Empire. Like I guess 'cause we didn't have GameStop, so this was never really big over here. That's why I only ever know it as a clickbait website.
Oh,
I
okay.
think PC Gamer Magazine is
Yeah.
still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, PC Gamer is still going. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a ton of them, but at least from my perspective, Game Informer was the cool one. Game Informer was that was your friend. Game Informer was your
Yeah.
friend. They were doing this out of the kindness of their heart, just telling you about video games. They weren't doing it for
Yeah.
money.
They gave some bad review scores though.
They
I was gonna
did.
say, what was the quality of the journalism like? 'Cause their online side was not great.
Yeah,
I remember
no.
before I played Silent Hill Downpour, I read about it in Game Informer, and they were like, "Oh, this is like a 4.1 out of 10." I was like, "Ugh, it's
Yeah.
harsh."
Yeah.
It's interesting that there's a conflict of interest actually with GameStop owning the magazine. I just realized, because don't they want to give everything like the best review score? They'd be like, get in stores now,
That's
preferably our
true.
stores. Buy this game.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how that skated by, how there's not some sort of regulation against owning a
I guess that's why they had to give bad reviews. I guess that's how they can get around it, right? They'd be like, oh, look, we're being objective.
yeah,
We're
Yeah.
not just telling everyone to buy everything.
gaining trust from your audience.
Mm.
I think also using the Apex Legends cover here is pretty sacrilegious. There's a lot cooler covers out there. Was Game
Yeah,
Informer,
they had some.
was Game Informer the one with the insane covers with like a muscled Resident Evil characters, or was that a different
I
magazine?
don't recall that.
There was one with Silent Hill characters, and they were like all muscled and shit too. Somebody probably knows.
I
what
don't
I'm
think that
talking
was Game Informer.
They look pretty standard for gaming magazines.
about.
I think that was
Muscled-
Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Yeah, I think it was.
Did
just Googled
US
it.
gaming magazines go through that era of just being like super crass, like in the early 2000s? Like
Yeah.
they just realized that their audience was like teenage boys, and they were just gonna like go really hard into that. Like every other joke involved like boobs and dicks and everything.
Yes.
I think that did happen briefly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was. I distinctly remember from. I distinctly remember from a certain issue. They had. I think it was like the top 10 nude moments in gaming or something. And
Nice.
I remember one of them being Raiden
Hot coffee mod.
from the hot coffee mod was in there. Like one of them was
Yeah.
Raiden from MGS2. There was it was a lot of that shit. Like
Yeah,
just it was gamer
that was
humor
huge at
back
the time. Yeah,
then. Yeah.
It would never get past
good
corporate
time
now.
to be a yeah. It's a good time to be a gamer.
Yeah.
You'd have one of the Bungie employees that got laid off very angry at you on Twitter for wanting that.
Sony was partially responsible for that with their edgy advertising campaigns. I mean, yeah, Sony was like
Yeah,
doing crazy shit during that
that
era.
baby one for the PS3, I still don't understand.
That was
Dude, that's
David Lynch,
classic.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it is a classic, but like
Wasn't that
it's
David
so
Lynch?
bizarre.
I think
It might
so.
have been.
Yeah, I
if
think
it is David Lynch, then well now it makes sense.
It might
Well,
not
it
have been
wasn't
the,
just that though.
It might not have been the baby
PlayStation-
one, but he did do a PlayStation commercial.
PlayStation
He
had
did
a
a PS2
number
one.
of. I think he did the one where it's like a woman in like a field or something. There were a
Yeah.
lot of like experimental PlayStation ads where like they were just letting people do like the most insane things and then just slapping a logo at the end of it. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, there was. I mean, and just like brutal ads in Game Informer as well. I remember like the Suffering, the cover of The Suffering with like the thing going into its eye, the needle going into its eye was like a huge page spread.
Yeah.
So,
Ads in magazines back then were awesome.
yeah.
That's why I like when I'm doing like research for videos and you got to read the old magazines. Like the ads are like half of the fun of just like going through those magazines.
Oh yeah, for
They
sure.
also are half of the magazine as well.
Yeah, they just happen to be half of it. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, that was what I was mostly looking
Yeah,
at.
that's what you're buying them for though. You want to see what's like the new thing, don't you?
Yeah, I was very rarely actually reading
The actual
articles and
articles
stuff.
themselves. It's probably why the journalism managed to degrade so much because they realized that no one actually cares.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the
It's
same
like-
thing today. Nobody's reading
Yeah.
the articles.
Like,
or
why
reading
does
the
Playboy
headlines.
even have journalists? Like,
Somebody in chat says ROM hacking was shut down today as well. Damn. What are we in a war zone?
The website was it?
Were you on a battlefield? Soldiers?
Still up.
Fallen soldiers.
Passing left and right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Damn. Rip.
Just reading it here. Time to wind things down.
Damn, dude.
Call it a night.
Okay, so
Dang.
luckily
I can't
they
go
do mention
on.
here on romhacking.net that everything is archived on the Internet Archive.
Okay.
So we're not losing the ROMs, but I guess we're losing the easy access to the ROMs.
Okay. Shout out to Internet Archive. Holy shit.
Because otherwise I was going to start going through it, so I downloaded everything that I might ever want.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many of those companies that get not companies, I guess, but sites.
Well, I
that get
guess
canned like that.
I don't think were making money off that. I guess for
Yeah.
legal reasons they couldn't have done. But
Sometimes you have to.
well, yeah,
let-
everything's. The theory is that it's all started with Apple, right? Making emulators like allowed on the iPhone. That kind of like it brought emulation like to mainstream, and
Yep.
that's when like the authorities started cracking down on it more.
Yeah, because it existed. I mean, I remember when
It's existed for like 20 years, and like it's always been a few like Nintendo, stuff going on because they're always the ones to go after it.
Yeah.
But it's only recently that so many of them are being like shutting down.
Yeah, it's not exactly hard now, but I do remember it being easier to find like every game you would ever want. But I think I do think that that's a trend, and as it gets more popular, it is going to become harder. It's going to be if they actually start to crack down on it, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Especially as companies have game stores where they can sell the retro games, they're gonna start cracking down on people getting them for free.
Yes. Yeah.
Which it's not the worst thing in the world if they're providing a better way to buy it. I think Jared from Avalanche Reviews actually said something really pertinent to that today on Twitter, because he was posting that he loves when indie games make their soundtracks available for purchase on Steam, because he made a tweet about that. He was like, this is great because I like buying the soundtrack, supporting the artist, and then using it in the video. And then I brought this up yesterday because I'm looking into doing a Quake video, and I found out that you can buy the Quake N64 soundtrack on the composer's Bandcamp. And I was like, that's awesome.
Oh,
you know?
hell yeah.
I would actually rather do that than like rip
Yeah.
it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then Jared said, if you want to beat piracy, make it easier to purchase than pirate.
100%.
And
So
don't
if
claim
they-
it after they've purchased it. 'Cause I had
Yeah.
that with I bought the Morrowind soundtrack, and there was a brief period where I forgot the name of the composer now, but he started copyrighting songs. He immediately stopped it. I think actually ZeniMax reached out to him and said, "You don't actually own you don't own the songs. We own the songs."
Oh, my
but
bad.
there was a period where he even had the album on his Spotify, because I used to have it in a playlist, and now it's not on Spotify anymore.
That's insane that this like the YouTube system is so fucked that like somebody who doesn't own the rights can just do that, and then
Yeah.
somebody else has to be like, hey, no, we actually own the rights. It's like, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah, I'll
running
stop that. Yeah,
rampant
sorry.
and causing chaos. Like that's
Yeah.
insane.
Man. Yeah, like Terranium says, piracy is and always has been a service issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, Avalanche is 100% right. If you provide a better way for people to buy it, people will generally trend towards doing that anyways because it's just easier. If like,
Yeah.
listen, I don't pirate movies now. I used to when I was like in high school, but now I don't really, unless it's not available anywhere. If I can't watch it anywhere and I need to watch it for research, then I'm gonna have to go onto a website and find some way to watch it that isn't that way.
And even then, I can't be bothered because I normally would just stream it, but like trying to stream an illegal film is just such a ball ache.
It's a pain.
There's so many
in the
pop-ups
ass.
and ads and
Yeah.
like trying to find the right stream and everything.
Yeah, and they buffer,
It's,
and then
I'll-
you got to switch to another
Yeah.
one, and and it sucks.
Subtitles would be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a brief period of time when streaming was so much more convenient that piracy was probably teetering off. I used to be really like morally objected to piracy. In a lot of ways, I still am. Depending on the circumstance. Like I think downloading ROMs for old PS2 games is game preservation, so it's not quite the same. But I used to have this roommate who he thought piracy was the best thing ever. He thought stealing music, movies, anything you could get was the best thing. And he said, it's not stealing, it's sharing, is what he would say. And I remember we would argue about that a lot. And I would be like, look, if someone, in some cases, it just is stealing. If somebody pays a lot of money to make something and then sells it and says, I'm not comfortable with someone taking this off of the internet, I want you to buy it, then it's probably stealing. But in that case, there was a moment in time where it was like, you know what? I haven't pirated anything in like 2 years because it's easier for me to stream it on Spotify and stream it on Netflix.
Yeah, they made it.
He's like, I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, movies are mostly like that. Most movies, if they're not on some sort of streaming site, they're on Amazon Prime and you can rent it for $2. And that's way easier to do than to go on some website and find it and find the right stream, like all that shit. So if you make
I've
it
rented
easier,
a lot of movies on YouTube.
It's one
actually,
click
'cause
versus
it's
like
cheap.
100.
Yeah,
YouTube's pretty good for that. As well.
YouTube, Amazon Prime, but it's just easy. And if you make it easier, people are generally going to do that instead of pirating stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
my favorite website for. Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I've really eased up on, because this was years ago when I was more objected to piracy, because I like to make art and music and stuff like that, so I was like, damn, I mean, if somebody works really hard on something, they deserve to be paid for it. But I've eased up on it a lot as I've had the foresight to see where this is going, and I've seen how badly all of these companies want to remove the concept of ownership. They really don't want you to own things. They don't want you to own your music. They don't want you to own anything. And that has made me really reevaluate a lot of things and be like, okay, fucking, if you want me to pay for something and then not own it, the Ross thing with the trying to save video games, the Accursed Farms thing with legislation is a big indicator of that, because they have games like The Crew and whatnot, and people paid full price for that, bought a copy, and now they can't play it anymore.
Yeah.
If you can retroactively take back the thing that I paid for that I'm supposed to own, then you've stolen from me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, they can do that with literally anything, with just any game that you bought and had a digital download for.
It's funny because they used to see those ads. It's like, you wouldn't pirate a car. Remember that? Well, now Ross from Accursed Farms is using the analogy. He's like, well, this is the same as if you bought a car, paid it off full price, and then 6 or 7 years later they come back and they turn your car engine off so you can't use it anymore.
Yeah.
Tesla could do that.
Yeah, Tesla
Tesla could be like, it's been long enough. You got to upgrade now. Boom, it's off.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite website for this kind of stuff is called myabandonware.com.
Love
and
it.
they basically, they have a policy where they'll only keep games that are abandoned. If a game suddenly becomes available on GOG, they'll change the page to say like, hey, you can buy it here instead.
Yep.
I love
and
that.
I think that's the best way around
great.
it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think they'll ever be taken down, because they're only given access to games that you can't access anymore.
Yeah.
Like, so you can get the Chronicles of Riddick games on My Abandonware for free, because no one does it.
Because
They're
no one sells it.
abandoned.
There's no way of getting it.
I don't even know who owns those games. I don't think Starbreeze owns them. I don't know who has the
people
rights.
Whoever does own them probably doesn't even know they own it.
They probably don't even know they own them.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So they're just on My Abandonware for free, and you can go download them right now. I don't know if we'll ever see anything done with that, because I don't think whoever owns them, I don't think knows that they own them.
They don't know they own them, and if they do, they don't care enough to go after this website.
It's probably
Because
like,
if they cared enough, they'd sell it.
it's probably like Embracer bought them by accident in some sort of, when they were buying a bunch of other companies, and they're like, oh, we have the rights to that? Fuck it. I don't care.
They
Whatever.
bought the developer, then they shut down the developer, and then they just forgot they had the rights.
Oh, we shut them down? Shit. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start calling these filler questions. Because not that we need it or anything, but these are just a question I think about during the week that I want to ask other people that do videos on YouTube, because I think they're interesting. But this is something I was thinking about. Do you get more enjoyment from playing games or talking about games?
Depends on the game.
Yeah, it depends on the game. I really enjoy playing like multiplayer games with friends, and I would hate to do a video on them. because I don't think I could be very objective, like analyzing them. Like I'm playing the finals right now, which is like a new team-based shooter that came out, and I really enjoy it. But if I actually had to sit down and critically analyze it, I think I'd very quickly actually hate the game. So it's like I have to turn that part of my brain off. So there's certain games that I love playing, and I don't want to think about talking about it.
Yeah.
I think most of the time I actually have more fun talking about the game than I do playing it, just normally. Especially like with making videos. I think I normally enjoy making the video on the game more than I enjoy playing it. But there are some games that I enjoyed playing more than I enjoyed making the video on them. But it's probably like an 80-20. Most of the time I enjoy talking about or making videos on games more than I like playing
the games I've made videos on, it's probably like 60-40, 60 like playing the game. It depends if I like the game. Like Starfield, I think I did have more fun editing the video for Starfield, I think, than actually playing it, for example.
Yeah.
So there are certain games, where it's different.
Yeah, I think I fall there too. I think I fall somewhere in the middle, where it depends on the game, certainly. I think a good example actually is right now. I'm talking about Peace Walker and Metal Gear Rising. And I think those are kind of polar opposites, because I think in analyzing Peace Walker, I'm starting to like it less because you have to get so in the nitty gritty about things. And
start realizing flaws that you didn't care about too much at the time.
And I see, I see what you're talking about there for sure. Whereas like something like Metal Gear Rising, like I just like playing about that. I just like playing that game. I don't need to talk about it. Actually, something funny was I had 5 pages of notes for Metal Gear Solid 4. And then for Metal Gear Rising, I just wrote, "This game is so fucking cool." And that was it. Because I don't need to really say anything about it. Like it's just really cool. And it was fun to play. So I think I think it definitely comes down to the game. Another question that I had was, do you rage? Do you ever rage at games? Do you get gamer rage?
No.
Single player games.
Single player?
You rage at single player games?
Yeah, that's the ironic part. I don't really rage at multiplayer games, because if I'm playing multiplayer and something happens, I'm like, whatever. Or if my team sucks, I'm like, damn, this, not a good game. I'll get them next time. But if I'm playing a single player game, it's normally specifically if it's a single player game at has bad design, and I'm like and I'm like stuck on a part, and I'm like, wow, dude, this is not well optimized or designed. I have to play it. I have to play it for the video, and I have to get through this in the next 2 or 3 hours so I can start on the script. I'll start to get pretty mad.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can see what you mean. Especially if I talk myself up for it. So like when I was like streaming the Fallout games, if there's something you notice is bad and you start talking about it on stream, and then you start realizing it's almost getting worse as you're talking through it, and then that can always get more and more annoying. So yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked this question is because I don't really get mad at video games anymore. I remember when I was a kid, I did a bit, because when you're a kid, I feel like you're more prone to being like, this is stupid, because you don't
extreme reactions.
Yeah, you're not like thinking about it and being like, oh, I just messed up. It's like, this game is like fucking with me, and so you get mad. Like when I was a kid, I used to do the thing where you like slam the controller on your leg, or you like twist the controller a little bit or something. And this week I did that again. I had like one of these cheap PS3 controllers, the ones with I don't know if you can see it, but it has the P3 instead of the Sony logo or the PlayStation logo. And I ended up ordering a new one because I punched this one and I fucked the analog stick up. And
that's really funny.
I don't do that. I literally don't do that ever. But I did it because I was playing Peace Walker, again, back to Peace Walker, and it was the torture sequence where you have to mash the X button to survive. That thing goes on so fucking long, and I kept having to do it over and over again. I was literally sitting here sweating, and my arm hurt because I was like trying to press the triangle button. I got so pissed. Oh, I haven't felt that in years. It honestly felt like being a kid again. It's kind of nice.
I had a similar thing happen this week, but it wasn't because of the game, and I didn't punch my controller, but I did take the controller and like beat it against my head. But it was because
That sounds worse.
it was probably worse. But the controller's okay.
I didn't do anything crazy like punch the controller. I just slammed it against my
No, I just
head.
bashed it against my head a couple of times, and then I threw it on the ground. But I like threw it. But it wasn't because of the game. It was because I played through the first 5 chapters of the 6 chapters of Bounty Hunter, and I was so like ready to be done with it and start writing the script because I wanted to have the video out on day 1 of the release, and that was like within the next 24 hours.
Mhm.
And then after I finished chapter 5, I turned the game off and said I'm gonna take like an hour break, and I went out and I did something. When I came back into my room, and then there was a Windows update, and I didn't even know because it was like 5 in the morning. I didn't know what I didn't even know what was happening. I was like, what the fuck? Why did my computer turn off? And when it updated and I turned Bounty Hunter back on, I completely lost all progress. I think it's because it was a press copy or something. Lost all my progress.
fuck.
Even the graphic settings reset themselves. So I had to go in and re-optimize the graphics, and
Holy
I
shit.
lost everything. So I basically had to like power through and speed run the game again in like 4 hours, just straight through to try to get it. And I think when I saw that and I realized that I'd lost all my progress, I like turned the game off, turned it back on, looked around, went checked the files for a minute, and then I like smashed the controller against my head. I was so mad.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That
think
sucks.
with games actually, yeah, I don't get mad. I get like more like sad, like more like like sorrowful
you
about
just can't
what's
believe
happening.
how bad it is.
Yeah, like I'm remembering back to when I had to play Fallout Brotherhood of Steel on stream, and that's the PS2 game that was not very good, and
Yeah,
realizing
I
like
know
all
that
the
one.
design flaws in that game, and I felt just depressed. Like whenever I had to play it, whenever it came up, like that was the game I had to play. Just wasn't a good time.
Yeah.
But I don't normally get angry, but I can relate, Evan. I had something similar happen where I wasn't saving my video files or like my audio files very securely on my hard drive, so I had this massive folder of proxy files, and it was named proxy. For people who don't know, that's like low res versions of videos that you can use while editing, and the high res versions are kept somewhere else. So I thought, I'll delete all those because it's for an old project, and I didn't realize all my new audio lines for the Diablo video was saved in there. And when it was one of those files that's so big that Windows asks, like, oh, it can't go in the recycling bin. Do you want to permanently delete it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. It's just proxy videos.
Yeah.
Delete. Open up the folder. Open up the DaVinci Resolve file the next day to like start working on the Diablo video. All the audio gone, deleted, and I immediately knew what I did.
Was
And
it
that
8
was, like,
hours? Was it the full 8 hours? Of
it wasn't the
talking?
full 8 hours, but it was 4 hours. It was the first 4 hours, all gone.
God.
And I edited, and I'd already cut it up as well. Like I'd already done the work to cut it up.
So it's just
felt that in
you
my
open
soul
the
just now,
editor
dude.
and it's just red, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah,
damn.
that's exactly what it. It was
Yeah.
red, and I immediately I started downloading software to like recover it. I paid £20 for a 1 month subscription. I managed to recover the files, but
wow.
they were balked. Like they were full size MP3s, but you could not read them. I tried, like I did every kind of YouTube tutorial possible to like put them into Audacity to try and recover the bitrate and everything. They were gone.
Oh, that sucks.
It was heart wrenching.
Yeah. I
I
haven't
feel that.
I haven't had, knock on wood, I haven't had anything like that happen in a while, thankfully. But I mean, there are times where you're at the end of a game and you forget to press record or something, and then fucking
Yeah, I've had
you
that
gotta
too.
play back through, or like load an old save and you have to play like 3 hours of bullshit. Like I've had stuff like that happen, but it hasn't happened in a while, thankfully. I've gotten pretty. There have been times where I'm sitting here playing something and I've been playing it for like 2 hours and I'm like, did I press record? And then I like look over and the red thing's there and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like that happens all the time.
Have you ever had the recording fail?
Yes.
I've had that before.
Yes.
Yep.
I've had that.
That's
yeah.
awful as well. Yeah.
Yep. Or just like power outages, or like, you know, like it's just so, I mean, I try not to think about it anymore. But it's just so, I mean, it's, you're at the mercy of whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
not pressing the button or just the files like corrupting. I had a weird issue. This is kind of like inside baseball, but I had a weird issue of recently, like I had a bunch of footage where like the file, the bit rate was set wrong. So it was set to like a variable bit rate and all the audio was like mismatched and
Damn.
fucked up and like too fast, and I had to, or no, it made the footage like choppy, and I found out it was variable bitrate, so I had to get into all these like weeds and like download like FFmpeg like as a shell and like use command line prompts to like make the bitrate, turn the bitrate back into constant bitrate to like recover the footage. Like it was fucked. Like it was so, it was just, I spent like a day doing that just to recover like 30 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
It was
But it
messed up.
worked?
Yeah, it did work. I got it back
Nice.
and I could use it, but it was forever.
It's surprising the amount of command line stuff I've had to do like over this like whole YouTube journey to try and like get stuff sorted.
Yeah.
Like I use a YouTube video downloader if you want to grab like interviews or stuff, and the best one I found for like high quality ones that you don't have to go for like a dodgy website is for like purely through command line. Go
Yeah.
like download a certain shell and stuff to get it working. I never thought I'd have to be using command line so often.
I know, it's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I want everyone to name their favorite Resident Evil. You guys go.
4.
4.
One.
4, of course. Has to be 4.
One.
It's still one.
Really, it's 1.
Yeah, I did play 4 until like way later in life, and I think that probably changed it. I played Resi Evil 4 clones before I played Resi Evil 4. And I think that
Shame.
probably, yeah. But I played Resi Evil 1 when I was younger, so I think for that reason it stays.
I think it's got to be 4 for you, son, right?
Well, they said remakes included, so I guess I could say Resident Evil 2 remake.
You like that more than 4 remake?
Yeah, I think so.
That's fair. I think that's fair, honestly. But of course, soon you might have a chance to reconsider your opinions.
Maybe, yeah. If I take
if
on
you-
the insurmountable task,
Yeah,
I
if
don't
you
know
go
if I
through
will,
all the
though.
Resident Evil games.
I'm not
that's what's up.
pulling the trigger on that yet. I'm scared.
Yeah, I think 4 is I think 4. I mean, I think a strong argument could be made for 4 being the best video game of all time. Honestly, much less just my favorite Resident Evil. I
Very,
think it's
very influential, at least.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
I think it probably is my favorite video game of all time. Actually,
it's got the. I mean, yeah, it has everything there where I could like if somebody said that, I'm like, yeah, I get that.
yeah. I think that's why I would just give it that title straight away, because it has a little bit of everything that it needs. I mean, it's like an 18-hour game. It's got so many different environments. It's fun. It's got rule of cool. It's completely void of any like weird things that would make you not enjoy it. It's got it's close. It's one of those games that's like Dead Space 2, where I'm like, this is pretty much as close to a perfect game as I've ever seen. Like Dead Space 2 is one of them. Resident Evil 4 is one of them. Those are like 2 games where I'm like, this is what a 10 out of 10 borderline flawless game looks like.
Jwlar, do you have a favorite game?
Or even a game you'd say is like 10 out of 10, like as close to flawless.
It's hard
as
to say
possible.
10 out of 10 because, like, to quantify that as the best game of all time, does it have to like really appeal to every gamer of all time?
No, just
Because
you
I-
personally.
Yeah, because I don't think
it's favorite.
personally like a personal favorite best
Yeah.
game.
Like what would you consider as a personal, like, this is a flawless like 10 out of 10 masterpiece for me?
Well, it's favorite, so you
That's
don't
a hard
have
one.
to.
'Cause I don't think. Yeah, I my favorite. I wouldn't say is a masterpiece.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't
I
have
can't
to
think of
consider
any
quality.
games that I've played that I would say are purely flawless.
Or as close to it
Because
as
you could.
can get.
Yeah.
All games have
um,
flaws. There's no such thing as a
exactly.
flawless game. But like a 10 out of 10 has to be an achievable thing, because if a 10 out of 10 is flawless, then it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's my
One sec,
problem. Is
guys.
that my favorites
to
are
go-
rooted in.
to go do something. I'll be right back.
That's all right. My favorites are rooted purely in nostalgia, and
Yeah.
it probably changes quite a lot. Like right now, what's popping into my head is Fallout 1, but that's purely because I'm doing so much Fallout stuff at the moment. And I wouldn't have said that like 2 years ago. I always default back to Spyro 2, Ripto's not
Ooh.
Gateway to Glimmer, or
Fuck
it's known
yeah.
as Ripto's Rage in America.
Ripto's Rage,
But I
yeah.
defaulted that because it was my favorite game growing up for like years and years. I would always default to that being the favorite one.
Wait, it had a
And-
different name in the other
Yeah,
regions?
it was called Gateway to Glimmer.
Gateway to
in,
Glimmer. Wow,
Europe.
I've never seen
Yeah.
this cover before. Holy shit! Yeah.
Yeah. I'll default to that, but I wouldn't say that's a perfect game. I mean, it's a children's game, for
Yeah,
one, so
yeah.
it doesn't appeal to like a massive audience.
Yeah.
But like every time I've replayed it, I've enjoyed the heck out of it.
It's great. I played the remakes.
Yes, yeah, those were really good as well.
They were
Except
fantastic.
there's some changes they had to make. Well, they didn't have to make, but they did make.
Yeah. They
for
weren't
the
they weren't
modern
bad though.
children audience.
Yeah. That's a good one. So either like Fallout 1 or Spyro 2.
Yeah, and those are like completely different games.
Those are wildly different. Those are on
Yeah.
other ends of the spectrum.
Mhm.
I think I also might have some recency bias here because I've been thinking about this game so much. But I mean, this game was already in my top 5. I think it just might have risen to number 1. But I think my favorite game of all time is Metal Gear Solid 4.
It's a good shout.
It's just
Yeah.
fucking awesome. I love it. It's a great
I
game.
mean, I would, to riff off what everyone was saying, I would say the Metal Gear series is one of the best series there is out there.
Yes.
Like, there's very few bad games in it. Even the games that people didn't like Metal Gear Rising, I didn't think was a bad game. It just wasn't a Metal Gear. Well, it wasn't what people were expecting.
Yeah, for sure. I think like 2 could go in the same spot.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't put 1 or 3 in my favorites. I do like them, but they're not my favorites. I think 2 and 4 appeal to my tastes the most, which is weird because it's that thing where like your favorite Metal Gear game says a lot about you, kind of thing.
What's your thoughts on Phantom Liberty?
Phantom Pain.
Yep, that one. My bad. Yeah.
I like Phantom Pain a lot. It's really good. It's hard because there's always going to be this question with the game because of the history around it, because of the history around the development and the things that happened between Kojima and Konami. There's always going to be this question as to whether that was the intended product, whether that was finished, whether there were things that should have been there that didn't end up there. It's always just going to be this big question mark. But I do think the spirit of the game and the soul of the very like personal and genuine and honest story that Kojima was trying to tell, and this sort of like really heartfelt message he was trying to deliver to his fans was very Kojima and was great. And I think as a fucking sandbox stealth game, it's like fantastic. It's just
that's exactly
awesome.
what I like about it. Like, it's as a sandbox Metal Gear, they did everything you would. If someone sold to you sandbox Metal Gear, it hits everything.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can play it for literally hundreds of hours. It's exactly, so fun. I think I automatically go to talking about like story and like personality when it comes to Metal Gear, because that's the thing that appeals to me most about that series.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so
that
different.
was also what was in the forefront of like the first couple of games anyway.
Yes. Yeah. It was. Yeah, and it was always just Kojima trying to tell really personal stories and trying to be very genuine and put themes forward. But I mean, it's also like that's why the fan base is kind of split, because half of the people really, they were the people that ended up playing like MGS3 for 100 hours and just like doing, finding weird things in it. And then you have the other end of the fan base that, really likes the story and is really obsessed with the characters and stuff like that. So it's split. I think that comes with every kind of territory, though. Every sort of series. I'm sure Resident Evil has that to a certain extent. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't give a fuck about the lore of Resident Evil.
Yeah, they just play it for like the horror elements.
Yeah.
But as a series, I see Resident Evil's definitely a lot more misses than quite a few.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, they're throwing everything at the wall. I actually don't have a lot of experience with the series. I've played like one a little bit when I was young, like maybe the beginning. I just remember the dog jumping through the window and the mansion and stuff. But and then I've played 4. I've played the remakes and I've played 7, and that's about it. And I've played Outbreak online with Evan.
Yeah.
But that's it.
I'd recommend if you like 4 and did you like 7?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Village is pretty good if you ever could like catch that on sale.
Is that 8?
Yeah, that's the newest one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to. The reason I'm putting it off is because I've had so many people wanting me to cover the series eventually, and
I just saw the amount of games in it. Like, good luck.
I mean, it's not terrible. Like, it's not as bad as some series. It's not as bad as Final Fantasy. It's not as bad as.
Oh well, yeah.
Like
that's like the worst possible one you could have picked up.
Like Shin Megami Tensei. Like, there's a lot more in depth. It's manageable, but it's a lot for sure. Yeah, so I don't have a lot of experience with them. I just beat the Metal Gear 5 for the first time. Spent 78 hours on that. It's amazing, the open world style and the side ops. Yeah, I mean, it's the other thing about 5 too is it exists in this chain of Metal Gear games that is Portable Ops, Peace Walker, and then 5, and they're each just better versions of the last game. They're all just trying to do the same thing, but they just got better at doing that thing each time, in my opinion. Like, Peace Walker is just a better version of Portable Ops, and then 5 is just a better version of Peace Walker. All sort of telling that 3 trilogy story, but yeah, super good open world and stuff.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many Resident Evil games there are. There are more spin-offs than there are. Are there actually more spin-offs than main title games?
Yeah, there's basically like 4 spin-offs for every main title.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it here. It starts with from Resident Evil 3 onwards, they start releasing 3 spin-offs per game.
Oh my god, yeah, you're right. Code Veronica, and then there's like 3, and then 0, and then like 3, and then 4. Like, holy shit. Yeah, that's quite a bit. Even well, I guess, because even up to 7, because even after 7, they were making the remakes, and then
doing the remakes,
Village and Reverse and RE4. Jesus. Yeah, Resident Evil something.
It's a lot. I mean, I guess you could just say like, I'm just gonna cover the mainline games.
Yeah,
it'll be a bit more manageable.
The other thing too, I was thinking about covering that series is like, I'm not going to talk forever about Resident Evil Gaiden, like Game Boy game. Like, I talk about it a little bit, but it's not its own video.
No.
So I'm sure a lot of the spin-offs aren't like, hours worthy.
That's where you're smart in that you decide that early on, whereas I decide like, I can try and like research everything I know about this, and then suddenly it's an 8-hour video about a Game Boy game that no one really cares about.
Yeah.
And that's too easy to do if you start researching like development, because there's always interest in development stories.
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been doing with Metal Gear, is trying to tell the story of Metal Gear front to back by using the development as like this thread. And I mean, even with the book I've been reading, the Sid Meier's book that I joked about in the beginning, it's a memoir about his whole life, and he goes through every single game that he's ever made or been a part of.
Oh, that sounds really good, actually.
It's fantastic. I couldn't recommend it enough. Yeah. It's got a great tone too. It's very like funny, and like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's very much embroiled in that early age of games where, ripping off like other people's ideas wasn't like nobody even gave a shit. Like, he was just basically porting games and like giving them a new title in the beginning, and really gets deep into certain things, like how they were doing space flight simulators a lot, and how they had to make the manuals like so long because there were just so many controls, and like you like had to explain. So the manuals,
there was no tutorials back then. The manual was, you needed the manual to play the game. It was necessary. And they would give out reference cards that were meant to be like small things so you could have other controls, and there were at points where games, like the reference card would be like an 8 like page fold out that you would have to like pull out and put in front of you just to have all the controls.
Yeah, but they also used the manuals. I mean, obviously later games did this too, but they used the manuals as piracy protection, and started including like there's like a whole chapter about him talking about how they got around piracy protection by using like pictures and stuff that you had to use in the game.
I remember I had a copy of The Lion King 1996 on DOS, and it came with a spinning wheel, and you would spin the wheel. And I actually can't remember how it worked, but it would land on like a certain animated icon, and that icon would have like a number associated with it, and you would have to type that in like on the computer to
wow.
actually
Holy
like,
shit.
actually start the game.
That's wild.
My girlfriend's car is not cranking, so
Ooh.
I actually have to go.
Okay, that's fine. Well, do you want to? We're almost at 2 hours anyways. You just want to wrap up real quick?
Yeah, we can wrap up. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you everybody for coming and watching. Thank you, chat, for supporting and everything. Thank you, Jwlar, for being
Absolutely.
here. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
it.
having me.
Evan, you want to do your quick plugs?
Just dropped a video on the new Bounty Hunter Remaster by Aspire. Really worth your time. I would suggest you check it out. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is in development. Should be coming out soon.
Hell yes. Jwlar,
Nice.
what do you got? You still?
I have, I guess, an interview with Ted Peterson. If you're interested, if you've ever watched my Daggerfall video or my Arena video, then you will know who Ted Peterson is. He's the designer behind Daggerfall. I have an interview with him on my channel, which I thought was pretty good. I've also reviewed the latest Alone in the Dark game, which is a follow-up of the Alone in the Dark retrospective on the channel. And also stay tuned for a humongous Diablo retrospective that will come out at some point. That's all I can say on that.
Soon TM.
Yes.
I am working on Metal Gear Solid 4 right now. It's going to be a bit. I'm digging into this thing with a fine-tooth comb. But next week, you can be back here, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of TGG. Plus, thank you for watching.
Amen to that. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching. See you all.